I'd like to know what it was that first drew you to the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, and how did your early experiences shape your current leadership style?
Yes, so my father was GP, so medicine has always kind of been part of my household. He had a practice in our house in Norway. So so medicine has always been close. But I was never really interested in studying medicine. I studied business and kind of went that way. Then when I finished my MBA, it was kind of good times. So a lot of companies came and kind of we had a lot of opportunities at different jobs. And I looked at lots of different industries, and I had offer from General Motors, L'Oreal, consulting companies, McKinsey, and one of the ones I interviewed with was Schering-Plough, which is a pharmaceutical company, which later on was bought by Merck. It's Merck now. And when I was kind of toying this off, Procter and Gamble was another one. I was kind of toying up these companies, and I kind of measuring them up, and I'm thinking, actually, if I work for Procter and Gamble, it's about how do you write new on the packaging of the detergent, and it doesn't seem like such an important thing in the world. and when I looked at Schering-Plough working in with pharmaceuticals, it's like kind of brought me back home a little bit from my upbringing, and I think it is something that's very, very useful. To balance this, I was completely broke, so I needed a job. I'll take a job anywhere. But since I was lucky to have kind of a choice, between different industries, I thought, yeah, pharmaceuticals, that's definitely not only going to be there forever, but if you can have a really positive impact. So I chose then to go into pharmaceuticals, and I've spent then my entire career in that field, and obviously learned the science as I go. But it could have been something completely different. But I guess when you first start in an industry, that's kind of where you stick most of the time, because your experiences are more relevant, etc. So, and I was very lucky, I think, with my first employer, because they kept giving me new challenges very often. And Schering-Plough was a company, it was kind of sink or swim company. So they would give you a job that you were not quite ready for.
Okay.
And then, I do remember once they gave me a job and I said, I think you misread my resume. And they're like, no, you'll be fine.
Wow.
And that was, head of hospital business in France. And I told them, I don't speak French. I don't know the hospital products. And I don't know the French market. So, maybe you messed this one up. And they're like, no, that's fine. You'll be fine. And I was, I learned French every morning before I went to the office, yeah, but it was sink or swim kind of mentality. But yeah, when you're young and hungry, and that's a great place to be, because most big companies very often is kind of slow, and and that's why people leave, because you don't want to wait around. So so that's how I ended up in pharma. So I had an offer, and it was a useful industry to work in, and I liked the people in the company that I joined, and they gave me an opportunity then. So I'm Norwegian. My MBA was in Spain at IESE. An American company hired me, and they sent me to Austria for my first position. So it's very international right away. And then I spent 2 years in Austria, and then I went to headquarters in New York for 4 or 5 years, then to France, then to the UK, back to the US, and then I quit. And that was 11 years, so that was kind of enough. Then I came back to the UK, and I've been in the UK since. But I mean, I did my undergraduate in the US as well, so I actually moved across the Atlantic 6 times. So
Wow.
I'm quite happy not to move far again for a while. So yeah, so UK kind of ended up becoming my home for many different reasons. But it's a great place to be based. But I do tend to work in companies kind of everywhere. In terms of leadership style, I think I guess it's quite Norwegian, which is fair and inclusive. I think a Norwegian style is very much that you want to listen to everyone, and you want to listen to everyone's opinion, and then you make a decision. It's not democracy, so I'm not asking people to vote, but I do want to hear everyone's input. Believe it or not, sometimes people have ideas that are better than mine. I know it's hard to believe, but you know.
Not from my point of view.
So, you know, so it's very much about listening, and I think also, you know, if you make a decision that is completely the opposite of what some people wanted, as long as they feel that they have been heard and their arguments have been, you know, listened to, they accept it much more readily than if they think that you just made a mistake and you haven't listened. So, you know, but so I think that is quite a Norwegian Scandi style, I think, of management. And I think I'm probably fair, maybe too fair. I respect other people's time. So I don't ask, you know, 10 people to work on something that there's a very slim chance I need. And there are some people who would have everyone write papers for them that they maybe need. And I've always been trying to treat people's time the way I want them to treat my time, to respect it, respect their private life as well. That doesn't mean that you don't have to work all weekend sometimes and all night sometimes. And actually, I think if you never have kind of a crisis that need to be managed like that, then, you know, it does create good stories, right? If you work all night, sleep in the office, and have a meeting early next morning with top management, everyone talks about that later on. You know, it's a good experience, even was a bit bad at the time. So it's okay to have that, but I do respect people's time and you know, outside interest, etc. I like to be fair to people. That also means I'm fair to the company. I have no problem firing people. I've fired many in my life. And I don't think, I think that if you do it right, you fire them so early that they find a new job somewhere else. And if you keep someone who's not performing and is not happy and is not doing well, and if you keep them in that job for years, it can result in really that you destroy them. They might start drinking, or they might just kind of lose all self-belief. So if you then let them go, or they leave 5 years later, they have a hard time landing. So if you want to be fair, you actually move on that much faster, rather than, you know, giving them another chance for year after year after year. They're better off somewhere else. And I've seen people that did not work in my organization have had a great success somewhere else. And, you know, so it doesn't mean they're bad. They're just not a good fit for what we're doing right now.
So sink or swim.
Yes, yeah, sink or swim in our pond, right? Because there are other ponds, and they might be bigger and better than ours, you know.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, I think people have a misconceived fairness about giving people another chance for years and years. It's not good for them. You know, you're not doing them a favor, you're doing them a disfavor. Anyway, it's a management philosophy discussion.
So having led, you know, product launches in, as you say, both the US and Europe, what did you find were the most pressing or significant challenges faced in navigating those different markets?
Yeah, there are always different rules in different markets. So the biggest difference is US and Europe in terms of what you're allowed to tell the patients. So in the US, you can talk to patients. So I was marketing director for Claritin, which is an allergy drug in the US. And I spent more money on TV advertising than Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Right. I was MTV's biggest advertiser back then. We don't have that in Europe at all, right? So it really does, work in the US to create significant awareness about your brand or your, indication. And you can grow much faster. And, Claritin went from 0 to 2 billion in sales in a couple of years. And, that's in the 90s, right? So a while ago. And without kind of going to the consumers, you couldn't make that happen, probably, right? It kind of exploded. So regulations is the biggest difference. In Europe, you definitely can't go to consumers. You can support patient associations and hope that they will, keep creating awareness. Awareness of the disease is, like people not being diagnosed is kind of a general principle and issue, because people can be helped, but they're not, because they don't know that there is help to be had. Mm-hmm. It's what we do fundamentally is to help patients, right? Very simple. And marketing is really to make sure that we do that. So it's giving the right patient the right drug at the right time. If we do that, we make lots of money, and we can put that back into research, and we can keep making money in the future. And we're in a crazy industry. Now, this is an industry where, because of the patents, we need to innovate, otherwise we die. And Merck has Keytruda, which is an immune oncology drug. Mm-hmm. Yearly sales, 30-40 billion, something like that. In 2028, it's gone, right? Patent is gone, and the money's gone. I mean, they might have 10% left or something, but it disappears. And so Merck needs to fill that gap. So even if you're a big company and you seem very successful, it's the bridge you're walking on is on fire all the time, and you need to keep building. So it's all about innovation, coming up with new therapies, improve the ones that exist. And cancer in particular is, it's about having a toolbox and to add tools to it, because, when you treat someone with cancer, you try something and it works for a while, and then it doesn't work anymore, and you need to go in the toolbox and find another tool to keep going. Mm-hmm. And breast cancer, for example, I mean, women are kept alive for many years, but it's usually because there are more things in that toolbox that can be used.
Did you learn about balancing innovation with the commercial realities during your time at Schering-Plough, or perhaps at Novartis or UCB?
Yeah, I think innovation, and if you mean by innovation making a real difference for patients, that's always the best way to make money, right? That's how you make money, because there's a big unmet medical need among patients, and you fill it, and you can charge a lot of money for that. You give people extra years of life, etc. Commercial realities. If you go 20 years back, so there is a Henry Termeer was kind of the first guy who realized that for small indications, meaning a disease with very few patients, that used to be seen as not interesting for pharma, not enough patients in order, so that means not enough money to pay back for your investments into research, and that changed when someone decided that actually it is fine, you just need to charge a lot more money for these indications where there are not many patients, and that became that's orphan drugs, right? And that became suddenly possible then to make money with orphan drugs, because people decided that you just need to look at it differently, and that has helped millions of patients with indications that normally would be seen as not interesting. So that has changed. I think that commercially even smaller indications are still interesting. I think innovation and commercial realities are very closely linked. So if the innovation isn't good enough, commercially it's hard to make money from it, right? So I think they kind of go together. I don't see really much of a distinction. How much money you can charge for a drug is different from different countries. Yep. So there's a commercial reality. So UK is one of the countries where the government is not willing to pay that much for innovation. And Bristol Myers Squibb have a melanoma drug which is called Opdualag, and they didn't even launch it in the UK. Okay. So that's a problem, right? Because there are patients in the UK that need it. And BMS says, with the pricing that you guys approve, it's not interesting for us. It's commercially not interesting. And that's a sad reality. And if you follow the press lately, there's been more and more pressure on the UK market. I think BMS has said that in the future they will launch drugs in the UK at the US price. And then it's up to the UK if they want to reimburse or not. If they don't reimburse, you're not going to sell much, but at least it's available. So but it is. There's always been this pressure in pharma between countries that feel that they, will pay for innovation and countries that don't. So it's quite a big difference. Start going back to the origin of the question, launching drugs in different jurisdictions, it is very different. In France, for example, they pay a lot more if the French government decides that what you're doing is very innovative. And, so pricing is not a problem in France if it's a highly innovative therapy. And if it's a me too, you're going to get a terrible price in France. And that's okay. UK, I think it's not like that. So UK, I don't think have a good system. But basically, when you run a multinational company and you run commercial for Europe, let's say, you just need to deal with each country differently. So, but yeah, if innovation is great, the job is much easier.
Would you say there have been any specific trends in pharma and biotech that are getting you particularly interested and excited currently? Perhaps what do you think will shape the sector going forward?
Yeah, I think cell and gene therapy is one of those promising areas. So that brings us, of course, back to Blue Cell Therapeutics, which is a cell therapy company. So, so cell and gene, so gene therapies are very, very specific, usually quite small groups of patients with one specific gene deficiency. They're quite expensive to produce, etc., but they can be one-shot therapy. And the efficacy is kind of beyond question. And cell therapy has also an opportunity to treat patients that where there is no treatment available, or it opens up completely new areas for medicine. So, in cell therapy, you have autologous and allogeneic as the two different types of cell therapy. So, autologous is that you make the cell specific for one patient. So, in some instances, in cancer that's done, it is extremely expensive because it's basically one manufacturing batch for one patient, and one manufacturing batch is an expensive thing to do. So what we do at Blue Cell is allogeneic or off-the-shelf cell therapy. So that means we use the same cell for all patients. That means we can make a large batch where we can treat thousands or tens of thousands of patients from the same batch. So it gives us an opportunity to reach a much broader audience. Now, cells are tricky. They're alive, right? So it's very different. We've gone very far from a little pill, right?
Sure.
And so it takes quite a lot of investments in CMC, chemistry, manufacturing, and controls, to get that right. Because when you do a tablet, it's chemistry, and when you do cells, is biology, and it is very much about making sure every batch is the same, which is not that easy to prove and to achieve. So you have to invest a lot more in quality of manufacturing and the controls and the procedures around it. But the end product is a product opening up new doors for treating patients. So yes, that's one of the big trends in the industry is cell and gene therapy. All of these trends go up and down, so it's very fashionable, and then it goes completely out of fashion, and then it comes back again. And I think every big area has had that
Mm-hmm.
They went up, and there was a lot of hype and a lot of money went in, and then it didn't kind of work, and then 10 years later it kind of came back again, and then it worked. So I think cell and gene therapies, we're on that second wave now. I mean, the other areas that are hot is China in general. The quality of research in China is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Speed is excellent. The cost is good, and obviously, there's a huge domestic industry there. But China is, producing stuff that will help all of us, not only the Chinese. And obviously, it's good for European companies to work with Chinese companies, Chinese investors. There's a lot of friction between China and the US for the moment. So we can take advantage of that, being European, to work with the Chinese.
There's a fair bit of friction between everyone in the US at the moment for some reason.
Everyone in China.
I'll put my finger on it.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want to go into that one. That's going to be a long discussion.
Oh no, let's move on. Beyond your business achievements,
yeah,
what personal values or personal experiences have guided your career decisions and your leadership philosophy?
I mean, I'm sure I can go backwards and make it all sound very rational, but there's a lot of serendipity involved in careers. It typically comes down to people, though. People that you like to work with, people that like you, mentoring, people, kind of giving you a hand when you need it. And that builds a little bit kind of how you like to work, and where you end up career-wise. And I worked in companies where there were good people, and I had really enjoyed working there. And I've been in places where it didn't stay that long. That was not a good fit for me. So I don't think I didn't map up a career plan when I was 18, to decide what I'm going to do in my life. Far from it. a lot of chance, and probably a lot of bad decisions that still lead a good place. I did. What did I saw I saw a poster in the pub the other day that said, "Bad decisions lead to good stories."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
we should have
yeah.
decisions in between.
Fill in the gaps.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, so I think mainly people, basically, that kind of have guided me through these things, and I'm not there. Huh? I'm still struggling my way along the best I can. I do like to work with a number of different companies. So, after having been in large companies, Merck, Novartis, UCB, and then 10 years in biotech as a biotech CEO. The last few years I've changed to do, board roles mainly. I've done a couple of interim CEO jobs, so kind of short-term CEO jobs. And I do like to have a portfolio so I can work with different people. I mean, my main job now, is Blue Cell Therapeutics, and helping Søren and the team. And what attracted me to them is that it's a really high quality team, and the technology is great, and the potential is actually for this cell therapy to go into a number of different indications. Severe erectile dysfunction is one, and severe means that due to some medical intervention like prostate cancer surgery, for example, that the ability has gone completely from being normal beforehand. So it's if we're not talking about like a lifestyle thing, we're talking about a real medical reason. And there's a number of other indications. One is pulmonary arterial hypertension, PAH, which is an indication where life expectancy is 5 years. For 50% of patients die in 5 years. So when we're talking about extremely important, we can make a huge difference. So so these are interesting indications, valuable indications, high innovation, as we talked about earlier, with a team with Søren and the rest of the bunch in Copenhagen, who are from the beginning decided to do this the right way, because it's so hard later on to kind of resurrect something that was kind of done too quickly some years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And they always done it the right way with high quality, using the right partners, etc. So that was one of the things that attracted me in the place. And I like cell therapy. I like allogeneic cell therapy specifically. So and I do like a portfolio or pipeline approach. It's not just one indication, but there's a number of different indications possible. You always have kind of a lead indication, but it's important to have more than one thing, because if things don't work out as you planned, then you have other places you can go, right? And it gives you the luxury of being able to change your mind. And if you have one product for one indication, if it's not going well, the only thing you can do is close down, which is very difficult to do when there is still, hope there.
Yep. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, I think is the phrase there.
Yeah, no, exactly. So there, at least, yeah, exactly. At least there are a couple of baskets there. So yeah, so Blue Cell, great company, great prospects. A lot of work to be done, but particularly difficult for the moment is to do fundraising and get the capital that's needed into the companies. And that's true for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
even companies that on paper look like they've had it easy. When you talk to the CEOs, it was very hard to get there, right?
That's why I don't sit on the board of any company, because it's too hard.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, in a way, it's always harder for the CEO, because the CEOs are all in.
Mm.
While as a director, you have, all in. You're emotionally maybe all in, but yeah, you have, other companies you work with as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the CEO, it's very much, full commitment. Let's put it that way. But there's money available, particularly for high quality companies that are working in important indications in an interesting field with an interesting tech. There's always money available. It's just much harder to get there now than it was 10 years ago. And it's for good and bad. I think it was a bit too easy 10 years ago, or whenever it was, then like kind of money was just thrown around, which meant that, we didn't select the best tech. And now we are selecting the best tech, but I think it's now so hard that there are good medicines that have died the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem, right? And, these were medicines that had the function that could have worked, and we never had the option to see it. So, but I think that the industry is improving and it's getting better. There's more money available. There are more M&A deals done that creates kind of money flows in the industry. Investors are getting returns, which means they're putting money back into it. So I think it's improving, but it's definitely been a tough 5-6 years.
Sure. Okay.
And there are new investors in as well. Middle East and China as new investors. So that helps as well. It used to be US only kind of thing, and the US and Europe. Well, there are definitely other investors now that have entered.
Brilliant. Thank you, Olav. That is all we have time for at the minute. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thanks very much for joining me today. And I hope we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.